flying over huge mega-cities, seamless transitions and landing on planets in VR, and endless supplies of spaceships building up huge massive fleets. All of these are activities available in the 3 games I'm going to talk about today, and we're going to start with this one. G-Rebels might just scratch an itch for me. It's something I really enjoy playing, massive open world single player space games. Now, I know this isn't a space game, at least not thematically, but it does, kind of fit the genre in many ways. As you can see, you've got basically a bounce to a spacecraft here, and the ability to fly over some huge, beautiful looking mega-cities. The game is set in a world that covers 12,000 square kilometers. A lot of this is ocean, but it's dotted with floating mega-cities. These serve as major hubs of civilization, and the cities themselves are all scattered, effectively acting as islands that were once mountaintops. The world itself, at this point in time, is more or less completely flooded. I really like the look of this one. I just wish we had more footage for it already. Within the game, you can take on a variety of different activities and side quests, various different jobs such as bounty hunting, mining, racing, bodyguard duties, mercenary work, piracy, or hunting for lost artifacts. In G-Rebels, you assume the role of a pilot who's in the employ of an elite force working under a powerful city-state, one of the many city-states within the game. As you might expect from this type of open-world game, you can earn credits, and these will be used to upgrade various components such as engines, shields, weapons, drones, multi-warhead missiles, and stealth technology, and much more. Now, the world itself isn't empty. It is populated by thousands of persistent AI-driven vehicles, and where it gets very interesting is that all of these NPCs can actually be interactable. That means the background traffic here is not just mere empty background traffic, but it's something that you can scan, you can attack, you can hack it or loot it, pretty much whatever you want. There is law enforcement in the game though, so do watch out for that. It's dynamic, and that means illegal acts can and will trigger police responses. So the footage for this game at the moment is pretty limited in the amount of minutes available. We've only got footage from the initial trailer here. This has all been made in the Unreal Engine 5. But, it does look rather beautiful. There's also some dynamic weather conditions going on. These include volumetric clouds as well as a realistic day-night cycle. Unfortunately, there's not a full-on release date for this just yet, but the release window does seem to be at 2025. The studio behind this game isn't a new startup either. They have got some pretty significant titles under their belt. The studio is Reactor, and they worked on titles such as Neocron, which was a cyberpunk MMO from back in the day, as actually one of the MMOs I really did enjoy from the early 2000s. They also worked on another MMO from back in the day, Black Prophecy, and I'm sure some of you older players will be well aware of that one. Very keen to try this one out, worth keeping an eye on for sure. The other 2 games in this list you can try out right now if you want, because they do have demos available for them. Now, they're not fully released just yet, but if you head on over to Steam, I'll include the link to the video description. You will be able to give them a test. The first is Intersolar 83. Now, this is a VR game. It's also a space exploration game. The developer has said it's heavily inspired by Elite Dangerous and No Man's Sky. So I'm going to give a very brief overview of what this game is about in this video, but if you would like a bit more of an overview and a bit more of an in-depth look, then do let me know, and maybe I can put the full video together over the coming weeks, and we'll do that on the current demo. So for those of you who do like VR and you do like space games, obviously Elite Dangerous is probably one of the best games out there for that, as is No Man's Sky, but it looks like Intersolar 83 wants to place itself firmly amongst those ranks. Now, to start with, you can see the aesthetics here. Obviously 83 in the title isn't just a mere coincidence, because this does have a 1980s sci-fi vibe, and a lot of that you can see throughout the ship's cockpit. The cockpit itself is fully interactable, and you can do that through use of motion controls when in VR. For example, you can manipulate the joysticks, the throttle, the pitch, the roll, the yaw, and pretty much everything else in there. Throughout the game, you'll find procedurally-generated star systems, and for the longer distance journeys, you can enable autopilot. So if you just don't want to keep traveling from star system to star system, or at least manually, you can do that with the autopilot. And once at your destination, you can transition over to a manual mode, taking full control of your own ship, and that may be when you want to, for example, descend down through the planetary atmosphere towards the surface of the planets. Another nice touch here is that you can indeed leave your ships and walk around on the surface of these planets, and it seems there's quite a variety of them. You've got full-on barren worlds, but also worlds filled with life. Obviously, the demo at the moment is just but a glimpse of the planned full release, which will include a lot more different variation and a lot more planets. Activities such as scanning and other surface-based activities are planned for the future once we see a full release. Now, inside the ship, players can manage a variety of different systems and subsystems, and this includes the use of a large console switches which can toggle life support, jump drives and power, also the cockpit display monitors, oxygen, heat and toxicity levels that are all around you, and this kind of reinforces the whole idea of management and survival when out there in the depths of space. So do let me know if you'd like to see a more in-depth video on this one. Next up, we have another game that does have a demo available for it. It's also available in live access for $24.99, releasing around about a week ago. And this one has a rather unique and interesting twist on it. It's called Annihilate the Spance, and it is a real-time strategy game. Now, this RTS title is inspired by Obliterate Everything. And the somewhat unique twist about this one is the sheer number of spaceships that you can create. Just look at all of this. So yeah, this RTS is definitely very much about creating giant swarms of vessels and then having them confront each other. It looks visually rather interesting, doesn't it? Just look at the scale of these conflicts. But obviously you can't just spam out these vessels, at least not initially. This is going to take some management, base building, resource acquisition, as well as thinking about the unit composition within the confines of the game. Now, there is a campaign here with 40 missions in total, and this exposes players and motivations, alliances, conflicts of all the various factions within the game. On top of that, the various different missions present different parameters for the player. Some of these may include restricted unit availability, and this means that you can't just keep using the same tactics over and over from mission to mission. What I really like about this one is that whilst, it's certainly about overwhelming the enemy, isn't it? And although you do have to manage your production queues, ultimately what's happening here is you have a continuous production of your ships and your units. And that means any mistakes you make will mean that you ultimately get overwhelmed very quickly by the enemies. So again, there is a link in the video description for this one where you can find a demo, or alternatively it's available to buy if you want to. So there we have it, a look at 3 different upcoming space games. Very interested in G-Rebels because I just love those, love the look of those environments and the different sort of activities that we should be able to conduct within that. But the other 2 games here also look really interesting, which is why I've put them in the video. Do let me know your thoughts and feelings about all of this in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Do watch the other video on the screen right here if you're interested. I'll catch you next time, and do take care.